proves we can't ever really know what's going on.
Appearances can be deceptive.
Tom, I was just speculating about a hypothesis. I know I don't know nothing.
Uncertainty. That is appropriate for matters of this world.
There, we're in a tight spot.
Welcome to Framework and the final full official entry in our Coen-Oscopy. I'm John, one of the hosts of Frameworks. With me, as always, the other host of Framework, Al. How are you today, Al?
Good, man. I like how you laid down the qualifiers on that because, yeah, it's the final one, except also there's going to be two more.
Yeah, but, this is the last movie by the Coen brothers.
True. But it's strange how the last several have all felt kind of final, that
this one really does.
Hail Caesar was their final theatrical release. This is their final collaborative release. And we're still sort of like trickling out more ones that technically count. We're going to talk about Macbeth and Driveway Dolls in a week or two.
Yeah.
But it does, we're on the downslope. And I guess appropriately we are, in the Old West. Whereas the thing about the Western is always about the end of the West and the end of something.
Well, yeah, sure it is. Okay, yeah. This is the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, the 2018 Western anthology that the Coen brothers made for Netflix and remains their last collaborative piece of art. It is 6 individual stories, somewhat loosely tied together by, like a stodgy old book, I guess, is the framing device, such as it is. Is there more to it than that? Are these stories just total, just here's some Western short stories, or is there a connective tissue that binds the Ballad of Buster Scruggs together? And I guess that's what we'll be exploring here today. What do you think? Quick answer.
I think most people would say that the connective tissue is that they're all about death, which to me feels like so broad that it doesn't even I don't think you even get the points for saying, people die in all these.
Indeed. They seem more and more kind of concerned with death as they go on, maybe. I don't even know if that's true, because you have the Tom Waits one right in the middle, throwing everything off.
It's not just that it's sometimes you eat the bar and sometimes the bar eats you. It can't be the same thing every time.
That's how it makes sense.
This would be really, punishing and one note if every single one was the Western Tales from the Crypt thing that you get from Meal Ticket and I guess New Algodonia. I mean, then from most of the other ones.
Well, I mean, they actually all have different tones. Every single one is sort of a different vibe, slightly. They all are somewhat death focused. But you can kind of point to that's the inspiration for this one. There's some Ambrose Bierce in there. That's probably the Franco one. The singing cowboy one. That's a bit of a curveball, and it opens the thing. The full on Tales from the Crypt. I guess there's 2 different kinds of Tales from the Crypt, you might say. The realistic one and the ooky, spooky ghost one, I guess, that finishes the story, The Mortal Remains. Mm-hmm. And then this really sort of soft, contemplative, romantic tragedy, The Gal Who Got Rattled. And then, they're all kind of thrown into a pile together. The Jack London, Tom Waits one is just sort of a survival story. They're all, I don't know. Do you like this movie, Al?
Yes, I really do.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I like it a lot, actually.
And it is strange because I can't tell you what the, cohesive through line is through all these things. Why these all needed to be told together as one unit. And I don't know that I can place any individual chapter super high in my overall Coen rankings, whatever. And yet it's, I come out of this movie, this anthology going, man, I really like old Westerns. which is a statement that is not actually true. I don't give a shit about Gene Autry singing cowboy westerns, but this movie, it's more than the sum of its parts. We talked about Hail Caesar being less than the sum of its parts, and it fools me into thinking that I have a much deeper and more exuberant appreciation for old timey westerns than I think that is evidenced by me actually sitting down and watching any of those movies.
Well, I do have that affection for the old Western. I've watched a lot of them. I really like them. And maybe that's, maybe that makes it a little less interesting that I'm really taken by this film. I think it works in the way that old fancy Westerns do. I like all the different swerves here. I think I like every story, which is very unusual in an anthology. Some are better than others, but only slightly. I think they're all kind of good. They're all working at the right, in their own way. They are all feel complete and compelling. And I think that The Gala Got Rattled is agreed to be like the most successful, but catch me any day and I'll tell you a different one probably.
It's the most complete and most straightforward. It's the closest thing to a Coen brothers movie. There's going to be a difficulty here when we have to do our internet mandated ranking episode of how to rank this against movies that are not anthologies. And The Girl Who Got a lot of that, I think, kind of defaults to where do you put The Girl Who Got Rattled in relation to these other complete movies? Because it's twice as long as any of the others. It's got the most actual real characters doing dialogue scenes with each other. I mean, the other ones, there's basically no dialogue in Meal Ticket, and none in the Tom Waits Prospector one, and nothing but dialogue in The Mortal Remains, to the point where it feels like it's a one act, one room play.
Yes.
And then Girl Who Got Rattled is an actual Western, just a short.
Yeah, you have a full story, but they all, I don't know. I think that's the only one that's more than 20 minutes long.
Right.
Some of them are 10 minutes, and they all are complete in there. None of these lag. Which, Girl Who Got Rattled coming near the end and being 45 minutes long, that has the potential to, but it's such a solid Western that, it doesn't. Anyway, I don't know. How do we want to go about this? Individual story by story, kind of, and then the cumulative effect? That makes sense, right?
Only makes sense to do that.
Yeah, okay. So we should start with the first story, the titular story, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, starring Tim Blake Nelson as a singing cowboy. Welcome back to the Coen-Oscopy, Tim Blake Nelson. A great addition, and he should be in all these movies. He's great in this. This is, with the exception of Oh Brother, of course, this is definitely the best thing they've given him to do, and he's great here.
That's what I often see him, Nelson. I mean, related to the Coens as being like one of their standard guys and all that. Am I missing one? What did he do between Oh Brother and this? Has he only been in 2?
I guess that's right. Was he not like a minor role in something or other, one of those ones that came right after?
Feels like he could have been, but I can't think of what it was if he made a cameo.
Was he briefly in Burn After Reading or something like that?
No, I don't think so. He could have been. It's just weird that they're the only ones who use him this prominently.
Right.
So we all just associate him with them, even though
he's had good roles.
He's worked with them twice over the course of 16 or 17 years.
Apparently, they offered him Buster Scruggs on the set of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, too. And then took another 20 years to make the film. 15 years.
They've worked with David Krumholtz just as much, and more.
Sure, right.
Nobody refers to him as part of their repertory.
Well, I don't know. Tim Blake Nelson actually has a pretty incredible career. He's a playwright as well, won awards for it. Writes stuff about like Shakespeare and the Holocaust. He's got a really varied portfolio of things. He's great in stuff like the Watchmen TV show. He's great, and he's the most recent Marvel.
Really good in that.
Yeah, and yeah, he's hilarious in this. I think this is a wonderful signature role for him. And he's got a great singing voice, which you forget. But yeah, he had it in Oh Brother and he brings it back here. We just got off Hail Caesar with Hobie Doyle and a committed singing cowboy bit, Lazy Old Moon, I believe. And that is like full on exactly what the old singing cowboy movies were. This is something else. It starts feeling like that, but then we got direct address to the camera, and one of these great reveals early on, about halfway through this story. It turns out Buster Scruggs is an absolute murder machine. He is one of the most proficient killers, probably, in the entire filmography. He's the Anton Chigurh levels of effective at murder. Yeah,
he's supernaturally murderous. I mean, he's got a lot of Bugs Bunny in him, in the sort of direct address to the camera and his general cartoonishness, but then he's also a gleeful murderer, which is quite a turn. And how do we relate the Coen nemesis bit running through their filmography to this one? And actually, they're all, I think it is kind of here in most of these shorts, even. Like Buster Scruggs himself, he said, could be seen as sort of, part of the lineage of the Biker of the Apocalypse and Anton Chigurh.
I guess a little, yeah. It's interesting that he's our point of view character and is such a goofball. But I guess that's not without precedent either in the filmography.
The goofball being this competent, though, is
right.
I mean, it's almost satirical competence. I mean, not almost. It completely. It's cartoonish.
Yeah, yeah. The way he kills Clancy Brown by kicking the loose board in the table, causing him to shoot himself multiple times in the face. That's Bugs Bunny. If Bugs Bunny were R-rated, and it's really great. It does. I don't know how you categorize this character, because he doesn't really feel like anybody else that the Coens have done before, except I guess Tim Blake Nelson's character in Oh Brother. Just in the fact of who he is. But yeah, I think the Nemesis figure. I was thinking about this throughout, and I think it is. I mean, I hate to be wishy-washy here, but I think something that binds the whole thing together is the constant march of death, and death is in fact the Nemesis.
Well, in this case, I say,
but
Buster Scruggs himself is sort of an angel of death by way of a Looney Tunes cartoon here, but he's also stalked by another Grim Reaper that kills him.
Well, he's not immune, much like Chigurh. Yeah. He is not. Yes. He is not outside this story. He's part of it as well, and subject to the same rules of fate and incidents. And also it is sort of a trope, a Western trope. The great gunslinger is always going to get taken down by somebody who's younger and faster. Is sort of famous. That's a narrative hook. It's John Wayne's done several movies along that line. I think his last movie is famously that's what it's about. It's and so they're playing with that trope here in a very direct way. It still comes as a surprise after he's been hyper competent for the first 15 minutes to all of a sudden, without any real ado, his head is blown off.
And we're relating him to Chigurh because Chigurh is the other most supernaturally proficient killer that they've put forward. But this goes all the way back to Lauren Visser, who is also a cowboy, sort of duded up in white clothes, that thinks he's got he knows all the ins and outs and has everything figured, and is taken out by somebody he did not think of as much of a real threat.
Yeah, I should have seen this coming. That's the line.
That type of thing, yeah.
But that's not quite the end, because they have the Oscar-nominated song "When a Cowboy Trades His Spurs for Wings," and Tim Blake Nelson ascending into heaven with angel wings and a harp. I love this. This is really cute. And a very different representation of death than will be present through the rest of the film, which is interesting to me, is that the way death manifests here is very different in each version.
What I find most interesting about that final bit, I mean, it's the most Looney Tunes of all the bits. That the spirit, the transparent spirit form rising out of the body with wings and a halo and a
full
harp.
Roger Rabbit.
But how that is at once the silliest thing that has happened in this is completely cartoonish, and also in a way the darkest element of this entire short. The idea that Buster Scruggs goes to heaven is going to heaven for some reason.
He's glory bound. Yeah.
Yeah. That is usually it's hard to definitively put into your film that heaven exists and we float on wings with harps there and have that be like really disturbing.
Yeah, I suppose it is, but I mean, I don't know. I was about to say the stakes of this thing are so gossamer and unimportant, but they aren't. It's actually like you're kind of in there with it, and when he gets shot in the head, you're legitimately kind of shocked, and shocked again when he sprouts wings. I suppose it's really an interesting tone this thing hits. The Looney Tunes and the super violence. I mean, neither of those are I guess they've done Looney Tunes a little, never quite this explicitly though, and
no.
And it sort of sticks out in the filmography. It's good. I really like this. I guess they probably couldn't do a whole movie like this. Well, I don't know. Raising Arizona is close.
Oh, but Raising Arizona was following people. It's not following the biker the whole time.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They could pull that off too. Randall Tex Cobb direct address to the cameras.
I mean, like they could pull off almost anything. That's what they're sort of just showing here. We could do... Right. Any form of Western we'd put our minds to, because this whole movie, this segment included, look incredible. We should say it
sure does. Yeah,
it is just a pleasure to watch, and it's interesting. Like the landscapes, obviously they're starting us out in Monument Valley, which is probably the most iconic Western backdrop there is,
mm-hmm.
And I mean everything like the costuming's on point. I love how Buster Scruggs' get up is all white except like all the inlays of it are black. Like he's got a black undershirt on and like the rims of his hat or whatever, or the inside of his guitar are black. So, and then, the guy at the end who comes in and kills him and sings the song is actually dressed in black. But I think the thing that I take away from this the most in terms of looking at the Coens' entire filmography is the direct address to the camera about being labeled a misanthrope.
Yes, I wanted to make sure we mentioned this.
Because I coming out of Hail Caesar, I felt like they engaged with those sort of the accusations that have haunted them of misanthropy more directly than they ever had previously. And evidently they still felt they had not beat the charge because they had Buster Scruggs lay it out very directly for us here. Yeah,
it couldn't be more blatant. I mean, there's a lot of sort of country patois and old-timey jargon thrown in there. But what it essentially amounts to is like...
Oh, I got it right here.
Okay, good. Go for it. Yeah, get the country jargon in there.
Misanthrope, I don't hate my fellow man, even when he's tiresome and surly and tries to cheat at poker. I figure that's just the human material, and him who finds any cause for anger or dismay is just a fool for expecting better. And that is...
There you go.
That's what I took away. It relates to there's a quote I've seen attributed to somebody talking about Kubrick and saying that merciless is not the same as pitiless in terms of like charging Kubrick with being a misanthrope. And that's what I think the Coen brothers are like. They see this accusation of they hold their characters in contempt. Everybody's an idiot and they hate them all. And they're like, well, no, we're all idiots. Like,
yeah,
but you're the one bringing the hate to it, not us. Like
we love these guys.
Yeah, we're showing them quite a bit of love and attention by putting them up on screen. We're centering them in these narratives. We think that you can't tell any stories about humanity without reveling in the idiocy. I'm putting words in their mouth there, but
not really
so much after.
That's kind of what he says. I mean, I think that's actually a pretty good explanation on their part, or as close as to one as you're going to get. I think they do a pretty good job of, explaining it in a concise way that does indeed stop the film. But it's fine. It's their Western anthology. They can do that sort of shit here, and it's fine. It's not going to ruin the interior reality of Buster Scruggs.
It's interesting to me, that we have this debate a lot of times around, critical views of art, and it's usually framed around the idea that depiction is not approval or whatever that term that the people use is that just because Martin Scorsese, depicts gangsters behaving badly doesn't mean he is condoning that. And I feel like the Coens are fighting off this charge from the complete opposite angle, which is they're saying like, well, no, like depiction is not necessarily condemnation. And just because we show people to be venal and dumb and foolish doesn't mean that we're turning up our nose at them. Like we're not necessarily putting ourselves as far above them as the rap on them would have it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the truth of that is in that like about half the time it works out for everyone. Like it seems to be a coin flip, which is their real ideology. It seems to be.
I'd say it's a weighted coin that tends to land like heads down about 3/4 of the time and up only about 1/4 of the time.
Well, if you're Jeffrey Lebowski, I think it ends up heads up more often than not. And maybe that's because of there's something about his particular philosophy and approach to life and inactivity that benefits him in some inexplicable way, or maybe he's just fortunate. Maybe he's lucky and. Yeah. And serious man is unlucky, as the Frenchman in the carriage would say at the end. That's what it comes to. Well, I mean,
yeah, perhaps. And I think I'm talking about averages over the filmography. There's more bad outcomes than good outcomes, I think, but those aren't necessarily. They're pretty evenly distributed between the good actors and the bad actors, I think, is what you're getting at. And I think it's just a function of. When you're telling stories, particular genre stories, the bad outcomes create more drama and more conflict and more story to be told, a better ending, a more climactic ending. So, a story, maybe if you canvassed more like Western storytelling altogether, you'd find a lot more happy endings than sad endings. But also, if you went down to the character level, a lot more bad outcomes for characters because a lot of people have to die for Murtaugh Riggs to get their happy ending,
Well, they're not. These stories are not necessarily doing John Wayne westerns. They're more of the Louis L'Amour kind of like here's a premise, here's an idea, a slight morality play, a sort of a parable about fate, about what you can expect. I mean that I think is consistent between all 6 stories. Is stuff kind of just happens.
But
when you're bad, when you are bad, when you misbehave, perhaps you increase your risk, which increases your chance of a bad outcome.
I could agree with that in general. I'm not totally sure that it's firmly rooted in the Coens stuff. I mean, like,
no,
that it really proves out. But that's the thing. We talk about this in different ways. It's hard to represent true randomness in a script.
Yeah.
Because even things that are supposed to represent random happenstance are still chosen and authored. And that is something, it's weird how fate and randomness can kind of get lumped together in these conversations, even though they are complete opposite antithetical terms. But it is almost the sense of you're equally powerless in the face of either of them as a human actor. So in a way they're coming out from completely different ends, but it almost doesn't matter to your individual Buster Scruggs or Surly Joes, whether it's divine authorship or just random, turns of the cards.
Well, what about the second story, Near Algodones, where James Franco, as the cowboy, makes one decision, basically, at the very beginning of the story, and basically plays out the ramifications of that decision for the rest of the story with no real chance to change anything.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it is the ramifications of that decision just because he wouldn't be like standing in the places he is later on if he hadn't already done that. But yeah, I mean, it's... and I suppose this one kind of has a nemesis figure in that the old man, the pan shot man, is sort of an indomitable figure, but also there's Ralph Ineson as the other, like the man in black sheriff that just he's ready to string him up with very little fanfare. He could be a relative of Sheriff Cooley from Oh Brother, I suppose. I mean, these are kind of thin examples, but in a 10-minute short, you're not going to get a full articulation of it. But it is still kind of there in in silhouette.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is James Franco robs a bank, gets knocked out in the process by Stephen Root, and they are going to lynch him hanging from a tree. An Indian raid interrupts it. He escapes sort of by happenstance and blind luck, and is then summarily picked up, arrested for a crime he didn't commit, and actually if hung. And it plays out in about 10 minutes. It's a silly little short, but I think it's pretty effective in just being as quick as it is. And I'm going to say I think James Franco is pretty terrific in this. I think he's generally really
quite good.
And of our canceled movie stars, he's the one I think had most to offer. And it's a shame that he's a creep because he was good in movies. I think, including this one. This is about the end of the road too.
I'd have to do a full catalog of our canceled stars to say who had the best, but he is quite good in this for what it is and what it asks of him, which is to do a lot of mostly silent stuff. My thing with this one and Meal Ticket, the following one, is that they are just sort of long setups to a punchline.
Yes,
like the entire thing of it rests on the punchline. I guess arguably Buster Scruggs getting his lid blown off is that same type of punchline, but the lead up to it is more, I don't know, lively and involved and has gags of its own going on.
This has Stephen Root dressed in a self-made armor of pots and pans. Ralph Ineson is some sort of Man in Black sheriff character. There's people getting shot through the throat with arrows repeatedly. There's a lot going on in 10 minutes here. Yes, twice.
Twice in that attack that frees him when he's being twice. There's people that the first guy gets shot through the neck with an arrow, and that doesn't kill him. And he breaks off the arrow out of his own neck, and then another one hits him immediately. And then another one where Franco thinks the Indian's shooting at him, and then it turns out he's shooting at the guy over his shoulder, and it's the second shot that gets him. So it's they're setting up this idea that first time, that. It's a good punchline. It became a meme,
It's kind of worth it just for the meme, yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah. It is. I don't fast forward through it.
Oh, no. There's no reason to fast forward through any. These are also brief. They're also economical. And
the next one is the only one I consider fast forwarding.
It's 12 minutes.
Let's finish with Franco here, and then we'll talk about that one. But
sure. There's not too much else to say. It's it's good. It's a solid little story, and it's funny, and you have recognizable actors being interesting in it. And as with all these stories, I think the storytelling filmmaking of the Coen brothers is on full display. Really good. The two arrows thing, stuff like that. It's full of moments like that. All these stories are, and as such, a pleasure to watch.
Yeah. Their composition in this is incredible. And
Not a Deakins movie. Not a Deakins movie, oddly enough. He was busy with something else, I guess. The new guy, what's his name? I wrote it down.
I think we have to give Deakins a lot of credit for because he's been attached to so many of the best looking movies ever made and all that. But I think what the Coen brothers have sort of showed is that there's not
movies are just going to look good. Yeah.
Yeah. That he's not the secret, behind the scenes genius that's making them look good like that.
Right.
I'm sure he's helping. Carter Burwell's helping. All the Stephen Root's going to help them, or whoever, or Tim Blake Nelson, whoever else is on tap. They have access to all this great talent, but also they don't lose much from any one piece of that ensemble being missing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's one of the most interesting things about Near Algodonis, I'd say, is that very last beat where he sees the girl in the crowd before the noose drop. And, it's just sort of this weird little kind of artsy moment where it's the only time the Franco character shows any effect whatsoever really about anything that's happening to him, where he just says, well, there's a pretty girl, and smiles a little right before the drop. Also called to mind Blood Simple to me. And then, Visser getting fixated on this drop of water and just kind of seem to hope that he's going to get this one last little drop of water before he expires. And then it's cut off by this sudden cut to black and the song coming in there. this is also cut off by a very sudden cut to black and then the news snapping.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah.
Do you think they're conscious of that when they're scripting it, or do you think that they catch it in the edit and it's contributed to their thinking like maybe we should need to go explore different things because they're starting to see that these motifs repeat the way I'm starting to see them after 16 of these movies in a podcast series?
I think so, honestly. I mean, I really like this film, but you can't deny it's a Western anthology that they're making, at the end of, a several decade run here. And it's sort of just like, well, what do we do? Western anthology, maybe? There's a real, like, we've kind of run out of points to make vibe going on here. So they're going to underline those points kind of one final time for the cheap seats in some of these moments. The misanthrope thing comes to mind. Certainly Mortal Remains is doing that. And focus on having fun with the storytelling of it, Like that's what I take from this. It's not surprising to me that they need to shake it up afterwards, though.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the meal ticket is, I guess it's sort of the dark side of Eddie Mannix's big pump up speech at the end of Hail Caesar. Where he's talking about because the picture has worth, and as long as you serve the picture, you have worth. And the flip side of that is that when your worth to the show evaporates, you can be cast aside really, really easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is just kind of a sick little joke, essentially. Liam Neeson and Harry Melling, Dudley Dursley from the Harry Potter films, of course, sort of doing a little traveling show. And in the Old West, Liam Neeson is the impresario who runs the thing, and Melling is, of course, a limbless trunk that recites Shakespeare and other verse poetry for a dwindling audience. And they just ride around doing that. They're losing money. Finally, Neeson sees a very popular chicken who does math parlor game and purchases this. No longer has need of the human torso here, and dispatches of him sort of heartlessly. And that's the story. It's 12 minutes long or so. Not much dialogue beyond just Henry Melling doing oratory in front of crowds, reading.
That's monologue.
Right. Fair enough. And he starts with the Ozymandias poem. That's sort of like the main motif of this. Goes on to like doing the Declaration of Independence, stuff like that.
That's the Gettysburg Address, I believe, is how he ends.
He does a few.
Well, before, yeah.
Yeah.
Or the Gettysburg Address leads into A Midsummer's Night Dream as the sort of closing signal to pass the hat.
Well, that's The Tempest, actually, but yes.
Oh, sorry.
And yeah, it's I don't know. This is just a sick joke, essentially, right?
Yeah, I mean, it has some context. It's in it being an accelerated version of their thoughts on creative industries, as we've seen in Barton Fink and Llewyn Davis. It also demonstrates their sort of ongoing fascination with committing murder by implication.
Yeah.
That's to say, like, committing murder to the screen without actually putting the murder on the screen. Yeah.
Very much in mind of that here. It is all storytelling. It's all just like, how little can we show or say? Liam Neeson has almost no lines in this. He's almost entirely silent. Yeah.
He sings a little song drunkenly at the campfire.
That's
and
it.
then says, "We're going into town," and has like 2 lines of dialogue with the prostitute.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Harry Melling has no dialogue. Because I mean, he speaks only in the performance where he's
right.
And it's not like it's something he wrote that gives us insight into his character. We only see him through the performance. And otherwise, we just see him look at things and react to them, but never speak in his own voice.
It's interesting that they pretty much refuse to build a relationship between their only 2 characters here, which is sort of the crux of the entire story. And they're just like, nah, they don't talk or do anything together, essentially. He is entirely the titular meal ticket.
Unless is the chicken a character? Are there 3 characters in this?
No, I there is a look between Melling and the chicken after he gets picked up where I was like, that would be kind of interesting if if they were competing for attention for a little while, but it doesn't even get to that point.
No, Melly already knows they can't compete. I mean, it is funny to think of the chicken as the man in black to Harry Melling's Buster Scruggs.
Yeah, that you were, replaced by a chicken who does math. That's pretty damning indictment of your show, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, and this came out before like AI became much of a thing, but it feels like pretty kind of resonant. And I mean, it was made for Netflix too. It's like this is what Netflix and the other studios would like to do, is find a way to get all those pesky people out of the way and just have a
chicken that does math. Yeah,
a creature that crunches numbers churn out all the entertainment.
Yeah, is it cake? Who knows? So,
yeah.
Yeah, well, that is interesting. I mean, this actually does work very well in that way, and yeah, it is a recurring theme for them, obviously, and maybe the darkest, maybe the darkest 12 minutes of their entire filmography. Honestly,
it's hard for me to think of a darker 10 minutes of anybody.
Yeah,
I mean, even like slasher horrors don't strike me as this bleak.
No, there's a visceral excitement to this. That this is just just a thing unfolding in sort of an inevitable way, and yeah, it's obviously something like No Country for Old Men is going to be more impactful than this, but just like the strict facts of Meal Ticket are pretty much just like your life means nothing if you can't offer this thing. Then you know what, you're about as good as a rock that you drop off a bridge, and that's pretty dark. But it's not dwelled on either. We're off this one pretty quick.
As you said, there's not like deep characterization here. There's not really scenes of dialogue, and the monologue stuff, it's repetitive. That Melling does an incredible job putting slightly different spins on different performances, but it is hammering you with the editing of the repetition of this. And that's why it's, to me, the most skippable of it, because it is all in service of this punchline.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when you know where it's going from the first performance, you don't necessarily need the third or fourth performance for it to land on future viewings.
Well, this begs an interesting question, though. Like, would you watch isolated stories from this out of context? I mean, it was initially reported this was going to be a Netflix television show, and I don't think there's any real way that works. But it is something to consider. Do these things stand on their own in any way that is interesting or useful? Like,
yeah, I think that I don't know if it was even their choice or whatever. I think they've kind of said that actually it was never meant to be a TV show. That was just sort of misreported because it was an anthology on Netflix. And so maybe they thought about releasing. I guess Netflix, I'm sure, considered releasing it as an episodic format, even though they drop it all at once anyway. Who cares? Sort of. But actually, I think that would have done a disservice. I think they're very right to have kept it in one lump that you play right through, because Algodonis, and especially this one, I don't think support an entire episode of a show,
Certainly
even a 20-minute episode.
I mean, I guess you could say they did this with Wes Anderson. Was it last year or 2 years ago with the Roald Dahl adaptations? Would be releasing this as episodes, and I don't think that particularly served that necessarily. It just sort of makes it an odd thing to include for Wes Anderson on as part of his filmography. Is that a film or what is that exactly? I guess it's a series of short films. This is tidier. These probably communicate with each other a little better than those do. I don't know. Those do have a very, well, I don't know. It's Wes Anderson. They all have a fairly similar aesthetic.
Maybe with Wes Anderson, you don't even like his aesthetic ties them together so tightly anyway that you don't need the actual release structure to do it for you as much.
And everyone just watched them that way. They all just I'm just going to watch all the Roald Dahl things now. So I don't know, maybe not everyone, but that's, they're all released at once at the same time. You're not waiting week to week with Netflix ever. So does it even matter? Does it even matter? I don't know. We'd still be doing an episode on it.
I think it matters in that, like I said, Meal Ticket wouldn't work as its own thing. And really benefits I think coming in the middle of this thing and having that absolutely bleak ending lead into the one like positive entry and the happy ending entry in this thing. I think that structure is important for.
I think
I might really hate Meal Ticket otherwise if this was structured otherwise.
That's a good point. And I also think, yeah, honestly, the arrangement of stories here is kind of masterful. Putting All Gold Canyon where it does really, it makes the gal who got rattled feel a little less inevitable too.
Yeah.
Okay, so
that's true. Yeah, that helps the gal who got rattled as well.
All Gold Canyon. This is the Jack London one. Tom Waits as an old time prospector. Kind of a solo performance for the most part here. Finding a vein of gold and going after it, and in sort of a natural splendor. This gorgeous canyon. Mostly talking to himself. He's singing some Irish folk songs. That's great. And this is a pretty beautiful segment of film here. Just stunning.
Oh yeah. I mean, the landscape is as much a star as Waits in this. Who, I mean, love Tom Waits. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
Perfect in it.
Love Tom.
It's almost, it's incredible that he had never played a grizzled prospector before this. Feels like his entire career had been built around an old-timey prospector persona that he'd never actually done until now. But yeah, it's perfect. It's lovely. I assume it's a national park somewhere where they found this unspoiled bit of mountain wilderness, and it's great. I mean, this is them sort of. It's the silent movie muscle that I think the Coens felt they never got to fully flex with To the White Sea. Like that's
right.
They talked about how they were fascinated with the idea of doing a whole movie that basically had no dialogue and was just watching a character problem solve and action, and you see that in their movies. No Country maybe most prominently, but this is right up there of just watching somebody who's pretty like smart and capable work. Yep.
Yeah, it is process. It is gold digging process, or prospecting, I guess more accurately, with the dirt in the tin. I never understood really how this actually worked, and I don't fully still understand, but I got a better sense of it from having watched All Gold Canyon.
You dig up a clump of dirt from the ground. You put it in the pan. The pan, you get it wet and sift away the dirt, and it leaves behind, if there's any flecks of gold in that clump of dirt, it leaves them behind is the concept, I believe. And I mean, my expertise is mainly from watching this short 4 or 5 times. And as he goes from, there's 2 in that clump, and I go 10 yards up the way, and now there's 4. So I'm getting closer to the source of the gold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems really difficult. I've always found the old time prospector to be sort of an innately tragic figure. I know he's sort of a cartoon, I guess, and things like Toy Story or what's it?
Or that Will Ferrell sketch that was cut for time.
Yes,
from
yes. Yosemite Sam, I guess, is kind of that. But I always thought, like, just this is like an old man who's still working that grind. He's still doing back-breaking labor, and what's he gonna do if he hits it big? He's an old man. He spent his whole life pursuing a thing. Isn't it sort of tragic if he does hit it at the end? Or maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. It's the equivalent of like what the cinematic equivalent for me of like watching an old woman applying makeup in a mirror. Sadly, it's sort of. So there is sort of that is a thing. I don't know if that's just a me thing that hangs over this segment as well. But it ends on an up note for once.
I mean, I know what you mean there. It's like, what's he going to do if he's suddenly the richest man in America from this gold strike? It doesn't seem like he's got ambitions to own the Red Sox or something. But
buy a golden house, right? Yeah.
But I feel like this short kind of eschews that entirely. It
totally
somehow with there's a little bit of monologuing here that actually just endears you to him and establishes him as someone who for as much as he's tearing up the landscape, has a respect for nature.
He does. Yeah. He puts the eagle eggs back, owl eggs.
Yeah.
But he takes one. You wouldn't miss one. Yeah.
Well, how high can a bird count anyway? Which is funny coming after a meal ticket, but
yeah, that's actually, that probably is.
But you get this characterization comes through of that it's not about becoming rich with him necessarily. It's about he wants to find the thing for, I don't know, for the sake of having succeeded or something. But
yeah, I suppose so.
You don't get that he covets the riches necessarily. He's not rubbing his hands together and going, "Oh, I'll show all those suckers back in Chicago who laughed at me. What happened?" He's still just. I mean, this also puts me in the mind of Deadwood a lot. This whole thing.
Sure.
Both because
it's sort of an Ellsworth figure. Yeah.
Yes, he's definitely an Ellsworth figure. He's also in the third season of Deadwood. There's the whole characterization of Hearst and his takes great pride in how the native peoples called him the boy the earth talks to, and Waits is the boy who talks to the earth in this sense. But somebody who has connection to the earth.
And to nature in general, like you said, that's the thing. Like he's you kind of love this guy, and I think it really helps that Waits is an incredibly compelling performer in any instance, and they let him sing a lot in this. They're doing all the right things with him. It's this is kind of excellent use of him. One of the best uses of him as an actor ever, I would say.
This is something that like. For the purposes of our conversation here, you want there to be this through line that we can trace, so at least our conversation has a satisfying structure to it. So, like,
I think it's there.
I want there to be a thing where somebody sings a song in every one of these, because Buster Scruggs sings a song, and Neeson drunkenly sings his song by the fire, and Meal Ticket, and Tom Waits sings the Mother McCree song in this one, and we'll have Streets of Laredo in the Mortal Remains.
Oh, certainly.
Also a thing that shares with Deadwood. But then I don't think there's any song in Near Algodones, and there's music in Girl Who Got Rattled being played, but I don't think anybody's singing. So
no, I guess not. I mean, it still remains kind of a musically minded film in the way that they tend to do, not quite as much as Oh Brother, a little bit more effectively than some of the others, Lady Killers or what have you. It's part of the film's language, and well utilized throughout. And yeah, I mean, you're not going to beat Tom Waits singing an Irish folk song. It's just, you're going to love it. It's going to be awesome. The best things you can have. And yeah, the turn at the end of this story where it appears he's dead and he ends up not being and being okay, it feels quite triumphant. You're just like, oh, thank God. I really thought he was going to die.
Yeah. I guess the other thing that way it fits into the Coen brothers' greater filmography, and along with Buster Scruggs himself, the Waits character is someone who, like, through craft and patience, seems to have mastered the land, and he's finally gotten the earth to yield up to him its bounty. Mm-hmm. And the moment he does, the rug is pulled out and he's shot in the back.
The guy was following him, letting him do all the work. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, he's being shadowed by a figure, like, younger guy in black who's going to shoot him. But even that shooter, once he seems to have committed the perfect crime, there's no witnesses out there except for the owl, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But he has the tables turned on him as soon as he tries to capitalize on it. So that is it's very much the Coen motif here of nobody prospers from their attempts to criminally enrich themselves. Really, it seems like, and even the people who try to better themselves in non-criminal ways don't seem to prosper from it.
Yeah, it's a joy in the center of this thing, and yeah, really, I think the cumulative effect of this on the whole it can't be overstated. Even if it does break up the very plain, just like, and then everyone dies in the end of the story. It's like the only one that doesn't apply to, unless of course you're looking at it from the kid's point of view, I guess. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean that is, I guess, one way of looking at this. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, it's called, it's sort of a collection of murder ballads.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, Mortal Remains doesn't quite fit that. There's
Well, that's where they
corpse
just
there,
explain
there's
everything
dead.
to you. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's sort of outside of that, but that is one way of looking at these sort of short stories that all revolve around a killing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that takes us to The Gallow Got Rattled. Centerpiece segment of the thing, 45 minutes or something like that. I don't know, not quite that long, but it's certainly the longest segment of Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Stars Zoe Kazan and a couple other people who I'm not familiar with, but were great in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was mad at myself going, how did I forget about Bill Heck? He's so goddamn good in this. And I remember once I was watching it, I was like, yeah, I remember 2018 being like, oh man, this guy's great. I can't wait to see him in a bunch more stuff. Never did. And I forgot about him.
I don't get it, but he's great. He's terrific in this. It's an excellent performance. The older guy is too, Mr. Arthur.
Yeah.
I really like how he's used in this. And Zoe Kazan's great. Jefferson Mays, Broadway actor I've seen in a bunch of stuff in New York, plays her brother.
Oh, really?
He's a great musical theater dude. Yeah. He's in the 30 Rock musical about daddies. He's the dad.
Okay.
I don't know. This is I think an incredible bit of filmic storytelling. This whole thing. It's so well constructed. It's so cleverly put together. It's so like every piece of this kind of builds up to the next twist. It is ultimately kind of about the how the tumblers of fate sort out and what bad thing happens because of something that happened a long time ago that didn't seem so innocent at the time, etc. Just how things work out ends up in romantic tragedy. If I have a problem with this, it's that it's such a fucking bummer, honestly. Oh, yeah. Like, this is such a sad story. I am so put down by the end of this. I'm just like, oh man, that sucks. Wow, that sucks. That's horrible. Because I'm right there with the characters, I suppose. But man, it's a downer.
It's absolutely brutal, and yet it's the part of this anthology that I look forward to on rewatching it. Like this is all the other earlier courses are appetizers, so like finally the entrees here, and it is. I really like the relationship between Bill Heck and Zoe Kazan here, or Billy Knapp and Alice Longabaugh, if you will.
Yeah, they're great. They're so good together.
But even straight at the beginning, it's the Coens doing their most complete Western since True Grit. And it seems to be deliberately calling back to True Grit in that I guess in the Coens' conception of the Old West, every boarding house has a Grandma Turner.
Yeah.
In it. It's like
She's
one
great.
foot in the grave is just sort of there, taking up a chair and a half of the bed. But you get, some sort of classic Coen in dialogue at the dinner table at the beginning that lays everything out. And then, man, I can't tell you how much I love the thing where we get her. She wakes up in the night, maybe the first night on the wagon trail, and hears her brother coughing, and she looks out the flap of the wagon and sees that he's gone out to the field to cough. And so as soon as you're immediately like, okay, somebody's coughing in a movie in the Old West. Like, yeah, this is Doc Holliday's, he's got cholera or whatever. And then, but rather than you think that, okay, this is the beginning of that. And then it just smash cuts to he's dead the next day.
Yeah.
Just a fly on his face. It's like, you get it. We don't need to do any of the intermediate steps. It's just, it's even more brutal and a little comical at once, which is, the Coen wheelhouse.
Very much so. That whole opening boarding room sequence is very funny. Whether they're talking about the lodger with the mysterious cough as well, and showing how that cough might have spread to Gilbert, even as it just comes across as dinner conversation. I love the bit with she wants chicken and dumplings, and said, just take it off Grandma Turner. She's done, I assure you. And
just spoon it from her plate.
Yeah. The cut back to later when she's doing it. It's really funny. This is the sort of thing they do effortlessly, though. This is like old weird people being funny. Yeah, they got that on lock. It
presents itself as just weirdo characters doing quirky dialogue because that's a thing that they're kind of known for. But you're right, it is actually laying narrative pipe in terms of the cough that'll kill her brother, establishing the dog President Pierce, even the sort of bickering about the nature of the nervous system. That's her girl's nerves are going to be what the final
Yeah.
tragedy hinges on.
Yeah. Like I said, this is an immaculate piece of storytelling. This is so well structured and crafted and thought of and created, and everything serves a purpose, everything to an end. It's it's a neat one. It's real neat. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also, I mean, I guess we don't. We're not laying out the plot here. We're assuming everybody knows how she dies,
Right.
But it strikes me that she's like another very clear example of the Coens' skepticism towards self-improvement or self-actualization, which is sort of what the basis of storytelling and screenwriting is usually built around. But as she goes through her character arc and she gains confidence on the trail and through the relationship with Billy, like. She just the point where she develops just enough confidence to kill herself in error when she shouldn't have.
Yeah. Everything was turning around because of these things, because of the lessons she's learning and the life she is making and the decisions that are improving her lot. And and then it just goes wrong.
We get a definite sense that a couple days earlier, when she was not as she wouldn't have been able to pull the trigger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, they've constantly set up like, okay, you have to stay within inside of the thing, there's so many rules that kind of get layered in incidentally throughout. And it all gets set up, and every step she makes towards it. Yeah. Self-actualization. That's really clever, actually. That's really fucked up, but that's what's going on as she becomes more and more her own person. Outside of the influence of her brother, who is apparently a bit of an asshole, and into this really positive relationship with Bill Heck, and they're great together. Then
they're great. I love how incompetent he is.
Well, their talk about uncertainty. That big one of the stars, one of the last things. That's like their love language. Coens too, I guess.
It's some of the most sincerely romantic stuff in the filmography, and it's because they're discussing basically the uncertainty principle and how that's where the real wisdom lies, is in understanding, embrace the mystery, however you want to put it. But there's a reason like we put that little speech by Billy Knapp is in the Coen-Oscopy theme music that we
certainly is
put together, and why that is. It ties the whole room of this anthology together for me. It gave this thing some heft and some weight, and tied it to the rest of the filmography in a way that got me to come back to it and start appreciating all the smaller bits of it more, I think. Because it does. And, not for nothing, this came out in 2018 after the first time Trump was elected, and how that seemed to sort of upend the entire world and what everybody's just expectations of how the world was supposed to function. And there was also a time when, there was whole cottage industries online of trying to retroactively make sense of what his appeal is, what it all means. And also if you can shit on somebody else in the process, say that what Hillary Clinton didn't understand was this about this. What was obvious all along that Michael Moore knew, or whoever knew, like this podcaster knew, blah, blah, blah. Nobody else did. And I remember sitting around that time and thinking like, man, nobody fucking knows anything really. Like they're still just casting around. And then this put such a fine point on that.
Yeah, I mean, when they tried to do that again this time around, 2025, when you hear that argument, the response is often as not, it's like, shut up, it's over. It's like, it doesn't matter anymore. It's fucking done. Forget about it.
Well, but it's just, and the thing just about how from our ancient past, what certainties remain, but how we hasten to find new ones, wanting their comfort. Oh. And it's like, we want there is a comfort. I mean, I suppose it goes to the appeal of conspiracy theories and all that too. That's the canard on those, is that it's better to think that you live in a hostile and actively evil world that makes sense. It still has rules you can identify and trace, than to embrace the mystery and to live in the confusing muck of shit. Sometimes none of this makes sense. And that it, in some ways, it takes more strength to live in the uncertainty than it does to just go full QAnon.
Well, what could be more Coen than that, though? That's what these movies are about. It turns out. I mean, I kind of had a sense of that from just being a person who's seen No Country for Old Men, but watching them all together in order, that's the main thing. That's what it's all about. It would seem. Well,
that seems to be the most consistent through line.
Well, Mortal Remains does supply a different one, but it's close. We'll get to that. But I don't know this final part of Gal Got Rattled. As I said, fuck, what a bummer. What an intense thing. It's just, if you can kind of divorce yourself from knowing what happens, and even the first time, I was kind of like, I think this is going to happen. If you can take that out, that sequence is extraordinary anyway. It's so great with or without the tragedy that hangs over it. It's
just a kick-ass action scene.
It's incredible. And this is what I'm talking about with the use of Mr. Arthur in this. He's all of a sudden turns into hyper competent, and it's thrilling and very exciting to watch him do that. But he also did fuck the whole thing up. No question.
It wasn't like he was never competent before. Like competence was always his thing. Like, but what it is he turns into the protagonist or like the action hero. You expect in a more traditional narrative that Billy Knapp's inability, his inability to shoot the dog or whatever, or even to convince Matt the trail hand to lower his price. Like that's going to lead up to the ground for him to step up and have a heroic moment or something. Even if you don't expect that from the Coens, what you don't expect is that the grumpy old man is just going to suddenly become John Wick on the plains.
Yeah. I mean, he's just such a, sort of a side character, goofy, stereotype through most of this. And to see him all of a sudden like show up at the end and you are like, and you believe it immediately. Like, oh yeah, he's the good one. That's impressive to me. Like he's making eye contact. He's, giving directions. He's telling you exactly what's up. He, figures out, oh no, we got a prairie dog village here. That's good for us. It's going to fuck up their assault. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. He knows it all except.
And it's even like he's also boosting her up a little bit. He's when they start firing their guns in the air and he's like, that's supposed to scare us. It don't bother us. Do it. And she's like, that's right, Mr. Arthur. Like she's clearly terrified, but he's like, not just suddenly he's speaking to her, but suddenly they have this functional relationship that makes sense. Even though it seems like he had disliked her, if anything, before, but then suddenly you realize, oh no, that wasn't it. That's just how he is. Actually, he does kind of view her as family now.
Right. Making it all the more sad and just miserable. Also, the weird thing where he's yelling as they're charging and the horses start falling out, he just yells, dog hole, just like Stephen Root yelling pan shot earlier. Like, what an odd motif in this movie. And it ends with tragedy. It ends with this, and she shoots herself in the head to avoid getting tortured by the Indians, and it sucks. It's such a bummer, and it ends on the note where Mr. Knapp doesn't even know. He's just riding up, and it's a little annoying that they spoil the ending in the plate. I mean, even to showing you the dog is alive. I mean, the dog's part of the ending, but I guess those color plates in the old books did do that frequently enough, so it's on brand, I guess.
Oh yeah, I just love those plates too. And if you pause, you pause it to read those excerpts. Man, like I'm still sitting here with the novelization of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on my shelf because I can't quite fully brace myself for just how self-indulgent that's going to be. But I think I would buy the novel. I guess it's not
love to read
the novellaization of this.
I would love to read this.
It's those excerpts are beautifully written.
They wrote the whole thing, right? I mean, they must have. I'm sure the book version of this exists somewhere. Yeah,
well, I mean, I don't. It's there in little bits and pieces, and what's there is great. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like them. I suppose they're spoilery, I guess, but this is the only one of these things that I guess All Gold Canyon 2 has a plot that could be spoiled. I think you probably lose some impact if you know that Tom Waits is going to turn the tables on him. But
sure.
But for the most part, these aren't that plot driven. And in this case, there's enough just little twists and turns that I had kind of forgotten what that color plate said. by the end. I did think that I thought she was going to end up getting bit by a rattlesnake, and that's what whoever got rattled meant. So I was looking for like a dark Tales from the Crypt twist.
I definitely thought she was dying. I was pretty certain of that, like from that color plate. But regardless, it's you know.
But it's not like he had a corpse strung over his shoulder. Or the quote just says that Mr. Arthur had no idea what he would tell Billy Knapp, and that
right.
I guess that tells you Mr. Arthur will live. But that almost like.
Well, you don't even know it's the end of the story. It's the final image. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Because the other plates aren't always the final image.
Rarely. Yeah.
They are not. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. A great little story. But yes, a fucking bummer.
Yeah. But we got this little triptych within this anthology now where with the Franco one, the character seems to have escaped death only to get summarily executed right after. And then with Tom Waits, the character seems like he was killed, but flips it around for a happy ending. And then in Rattled, it seems like Mr. Arthur's been killed, which he turns around on him like Tom Waits did, but that leads to a more tragic ending.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool move, by the way, Mr. Arthur. Too bad, but still.
Also pretty cool, the Comanche warriors like hiding on the side of the horse and flipping over to get the drop of Mr. Arthur is a pretty sick move too.
It's a no joke great action sequence. It's one of their better ones ever, probably, right? This is one of the best action scenes of the Coens, which is not like a stack deck necessarily. That's not really their thing, but it certainly is a surprising, like, great sequence that shows up here. And I'm just like, wow, ooh, that had a juice to it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get the Mortal Remains.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So now this one, very different from the rest. Clearly, like stage bound. You know, like this is they shot this in a room. Clearly, there's some fun lighting that they have, but you know, this is such a different kind of story than the rest of it. And what this feels like to me more than anything is one of the old Amicus horror anthologies from England, where they have all the characters. You know, the wraparound story. Where they, you know, like, it's like, oh, well, we find ourselves in this room together, gentlemen. Why don't we tell each other ghost stories? And then you find out in the end that they're all dead. Is like that's how most of those are, and that's what this is essentially. It's almost weird. It's not the it's not James Franco and Zoe Kazan and Henry Melling getting on the stagecoach telling their stories over the course of the film.
Yeah, especially because the Saul Rubinek gambler here is done up with like the exact same mustache as David Krumholtz is, and doing the same accent in the Buster Scruggs segment. He's sitting there playing poker dressed as this guy. And I saw somewhere it said that they intended that to be the same actor, but there was an availability issue, so they ended up casting two different people there. I don't know though. That I don't think I'd buy that. That's one. It just has the waft of a thing that somebody asked on Reddit. Right. Because it seemed like a reasonable thing to ask about, and then just made its way onto the IMDb trivia, and now it's there. But also, like, I don't think it would make sense to have this one connecting character between the first and sixth one and not do that anywhere else, even though there are clearly ways that you could do it if that's what you wanted to do.
I mean, I do wonder if like these characters weren't at one time in some version of a script, you know.
Yeah, if it was a Canterbury.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Or if it was like a Canterbury Tales thing. I mean,
Chelsea Ross seems to be playing a version of the prospector a little bit, maybe. You know, he's not that, but it's the same type.
And Tyne Daly certainly could have been on the wagon train, or could have been the boarding house lady.
Yep.
And the sort of the Satanic Englishman part of the duo.
He's great.
You know, talks about telling story is the way that they distract people as the Grim Reapers, as he tells them a story and then Brendan Gleeson thumps them when they're distracted. That could have been a Canterbury Tales setup where they're all telling each other, well, let me tell you about Buster Scruggs. Let me tell you about the girl who got rattled. Let me tell you about this, you know, Rubinek could tell you about this bank robbery knows that was the luckiest and the unluckiest man he ever met.
I mean, it's kind of doing that. It is kind of doing all that. It's just not as director 1-to-1 or tidy. You know, I mean, that is essentially what they want to get at here. It's just not quite. It's not the same characters per se. It's different folks, but like, I mean, they get into this in the thing. You know, we like seeing ourselves in the story, but not too much. The characters are all kind of us in a sense, and this, I think, also serves as a nice little. Well, I mean, it's the last thing that gets said at the end of their last collaborative film together. You know, it's kind of hard not to take that with some import. And it does serve, I think, as an interesting kind of final statement. Basically, the idea that stories exist to distract us from death. And it certainly works as an underpinning theme for Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Beyond that, you know, maybe the whole thing. But it is definitely positioned that way here.
Yeah, and I do like, I mean, it's just an incredible bit of performance and sort of subtle cinematography that the sort of unblinking pull in on him as he's talking about how he likes to watch people try and navigate the passage as they're dying and figure out what it was all about. And Tiny Nelly asks him do they ever figure it out? And he has the long pregnant pause before he just kind of chuckles and goes, how should I know? I'm only watching.
Yep.
And it's this devilish thing, but also it fits like with the Coen brothers' overall thing is, well, why would you think that the storyteller has all the answers of life and death?
We don't have the answers. Why would you think we would? He is excellent, that guy. Great little performance out of him. Everyone in this sequence is actually exceptional. Like, they're all doing really good work at lifting a very stagey, set-bound kind of declarative bit of writing and making it feel kind of lived in and real. They're all great. I mean, I don't know if that's how I would describe it. I don't think lived in and real is really what they're going for here. Like I said, it is so consciously true enough.
You know,
yeah, heightened,
like dramaturgy. The way you have these three people that clearly are you know, don't have first names. They have titles that are capitalized. You've got the trapper, the gambler, the lady, or the, I
think she's the lady. Yes,
the professor's wife, I guess you'd call her. And they all have these very distinct
philosophical ideas about life.
About humanity. Where, you know, the trapper says everyone's the same. The wife says, no, there are two kinds of people, and the gambler says, no, everybody's unique. You can't possibly know, even your best friends, how they would feel. And that is, like, I mean, the most interesting philosophical part of it, I guess, speaks to me as a gambler and as a Coen fan, and their relationship to gambling and this idea of where he says no one can play another man's hand for them, and that
another
that echoes
to, yeah.
Well, I mean, it goes back to Buster Scruggs, where they insist that he does play the other guy's hand.
The dead man's hand, by the way. Did you see that? That's
another Deadwood connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why Buster demurs from playing it, I think, is because he sees it's aces and eights, which is you know, the
Wild
first
Bill's
hand.
last hand, yes.
Yeah. But just the and the guy who insists that Buster play another man's hand immediately is shot in the face multiple times over it. But Chigurh asserts that he can't call the coin for his victims.
Yeah.
And Tom Reagan back in Miller's Crossing was repeatedly talking about how no one knows anyone, not that much. And that's sort of what the gambler is going on about here. You know, that I know my friend, yes, but how a man bets in a game of poker, like, that is the culmination of every experience of his life leading up to that bet. And I couldn't possibly recreate it exactly. And I think there's something true there. He then takes it into the way of, you can't know that your husband loves you the way that you love him. And of course he probably doesn't, because you were different people and blah, blah, blah. That's a more hurtful thing to be going at. Doesn't feel any less true for it, though.
Right. Yeah. It's I mean, yeah, this is kind of like film theory scene. This is one where you feel like, okay, we're doing one for the academics here. Somebody who wants to study Coen Brothers can parse all of this. It's a lot of fun, provocative kind of talk about a lot of their pet themes, and I think pretty effective because of the acting, just how it's staged. And you know, you get Brendan Gleeson singing Streets of Laredo. I'm going to enjoy that. You know, it's going to be great. It's the same song Swear Engine scenes in the Amateur Night episode.
Yeah.
It's, I'm sorry. I'm not made of stone. I'm just going to love that. They bring back the Midnight Caller from True Grit, and to good effect. You know, the Englishman says something that was like, yes, the Midnight Caller comes from him, not you, every time. It's good. I like all of this. I was playing around with the idea that maybe the ultimate uncertainty is that maybe they're not even dead. maybe nothing's going on at all. Like they've just arrived where they were at Fort Morgan, and they get off, and that's the end of it. But that doesn't mean
I kind of want that to be a little more ambiguous, like that there is more room for an interpretation where this guy is just kind of fucking with them. But I don't see it at all in the filmmaking or the performances here.
It buys you nothing if that's the case. Yeah. It's kind of an interesting idea, though. But that's not the case. They're dead, and it is the transition from life into death has been dramatized. And maybe all the stories were kind of about that, even the Tom Waits one, because it's about random happenstance and chance playing into it.
And the final shot of the Tom Waits one and the excerpt of the book that we see is about sort of the land returning to its equilibrium after and erasing
Pristine.
the signs of man's passage.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
He doesn't die in that one, but he does pass from that earth in the end. You know what I mean?
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, is this a key that unlocks the entire thing for you at all? Does this work as a final statement, even as there are more movies to talk about? Is this stuff kind of just a trifle, sort of them having fun with some of their familiar themes and just having a good time telling brief little stories because they've kind of run out of main ideas to sell at this point? I don't know where this lands. I mean, if I'm ranking them, it's probably like right in the middle somewhere, I think. I really love it. I think it's terrific, but it's a hard one to quantify in any way.
It's hard for me to answer that question because I want to say that, basically, you're asking about, is this just a trifle or is this the ultimate meditation on life and death? And that is what they're all on about, is that, our existence maybe is kind of meaningless and maybe it's all just a trifle, or maybe it's the most important, theological cosmic questions, whatever. It's two sides of the same coin. It's both the most important question and utterly unimportant in whatever cosmic scheme of things there is. And I can't figure out a way to say that without sounding like an enormous douchebag that's also kind of dodging the question.
I mean, that is the way this movie leaves you feeling, though, a little bit, right? I mean, like
the whole filmography.
I don't know. No Country for Old Men has a clear thesis. Like a lot of these, you come off and you're like, I get that now. Oh, I'm taking that with me. I can apply that to my life. As taken as a whole, though, it is kind of about, uncertainty. It's kind of about not knowing for sure some stuff and having to kind of feel it out. And it matters case to case, and it's going to be different just because of the vicissitudes of fate. And as such, what lesson are you supposed to take from it? Are you even supposed to take a lesson?
Yeah, the further down you get down that path, the more it is like, am I just saying nothing now, though? That sometimes it's this, sometimes it's the opposite of that, this. And blah, blah, blah. And that is both very true and then also runs a little counter to what we expect of art as to putting forth a sort of consistent thesis.
Well, maybe so, but in the end, is not just a story just there to insulate us from the idea of death? Is it a way for us to get ready for and just sort of mentally prepare for non-existence at some point? I mean,
so is everything.
Yeah, I suppose.
So were turkey sandwiches.
Fair point. Fair point. Yeah. Okay. Well said.
I mean, I do think this is sort of a Rosetta Stone's filmography, though. If only, I mean, that for me anyway. That I think, now that you and I fashion ourselves these devoted Coen scholars, we've got more consistent thesis about what they're on about. But I think that monologue about uncertainty and how we hasten to find new certainties throughout the ages for the girl who got rattled I think that was like a coin dropping for me. And be like, this is kind of what ties Blood Simple to No Country for Old Men to Llewyn Davis to throughout the whole thing. And it did unlock a little something for me in all of this.
What more can you ask from a final film, really? I mean, it's also really entertaining and really well made, and it's a kind of a joy to watch. So,
I could ask for Tom Waits to sing 2 more songs.
Wouldn't have minded.
Ideally, Never Let Go, and maybe you could end the whole thing, like over credits, you could do Come On Up to the House.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Ooh. It's really good. Yeah. He's one of those performers, man. Is this the best Tom Waits performance? I don't know. Dracula's good.
Dracula's so much fun.
Down by Law is the lead role, I guess. Whatever.
I suppose.
He's always awesome. Tom Waits is the best.
I mean, Dracula's so much fun. He's having so much fun there. It's kind of revelatory. And this is just somehow the apotheosis of everything that you want from him. It's like, yes, you could have cast somebody else in this, but why would you? It's perfect. Anyway.
All right.
Okay,
so we're not done with Coens, though. We're not.
No.
Yeah.
No, after this movie, they split up, and Joel went and made The Tragedy of Macbeth with Denzel and Frances McDormand, and Ethan made Drive Away Dolls with Margaret Qualley and his wife, common law wife of some sort. I'm not quite sure what their relationship is.
We'll figure it out before the thing. Yeah.
Those movies, I rather liked both of them. They both felt lesser than the Coens' top half of the filmography, at least.
Yeah.
But we're gonna look at those. Maybe throw in a little Bridge of Spies, which they wrote and did.
I watched that last night. Bridge of Spies.
Okay, well, I'll watch it tonight then, and we'll reconvene.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we'll talk more about their other projects, and and of course come back for a ranking episode. But man, it's been quite a trip, man. This has been my favorite of the film series we've done. These guys, man, good filmmakers, wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, and always plenty to talk about.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening.
Tom, I was just speculating about a hypothesis. I know I don't know nothing.
Uncertainty. That is appropriate for matters of this world.
There, where the tie's back.